Hey guys, it's been a while since my last update of my 54 corner tank, but as you can see here, this is not my display tank, but my quarantine tank that I have set up again. Originally my quarantine tank was crashing heavily and the levels was extremely high, and just decided to make that move to put the fish in the display tank. Unfortunately, one of the fish I did purchase from the store, I'm expecting the blue dot jawfish that I don't think was in the last video, had marine velvet on them, and unfortunately the tank wiped out, the parasite wiped out the whole tank. I did have a few survivors, the two clownfish that are from ORA, and the other one's Sustainable Aquatics, the frostbite, and the premium snowflake. They were covered with the velvet, the ick, they had everything on them, but they were fighting it, and since I put them in this quarantine tank, it seemed like their skin color and everything else is back to normal, which is a great sign. The Bobonius, this is actually a different Bobonius. My other one did perish. The hogfish here and Tamini Tang are doing good in this quarantine tank. The hogfish was actually in the other tank. The hogfish actually did not have any signs of anything on him. It was actually totally unaffected, not one speck of ick. He was pecking the cysts off the other fish, but you know, he was a survivor. Along with the coral croucher, he was unaffected as well. You can't see him in the rocks, but you know, I added this to Mini Tang. He's small. He'll stay pretty much small compared to other tangs. The bristle tooth, so he's also passive. Great little tang to have to keep some algae and control your tank. You know, they say max size 6 inches. I would say about 4 inches in a home aquarium. And you know, they don't need to swim like some other tangs. They bounce around the rocks and move in and out of the rocks. They're not like that open swimmer like some other tangs, like a Naso tang or something like that. Going back to what you should have in your quarantine tank, obviously a heater to keep the temperature at a certain level. I do have a temperature float somewhere. It's somewhere on top, but it's hard to see with the lid. And I was talking about lids. It's always good to have a lid, because your tank, your fish will jump out of your tank and they think there's water on the other side, which apparently there's not. You can put a hang back skimmer. I went with my big skimmer here because I had it, and I cut a little hole in the top so I could put the collection cup on top of it. But this is rated for 75 gallons, yet this is a 20-gallon quarantine tank, which is over skimming is always better than no skimming, I would say. It keeps the ammonia levels down. Instead of testing all the time, you know, you could get one of these little $7 or $8 or $10, whatever your store charges, ammonia alert. It's good for a year, and as you can see here, it's yellow for safe. So you don't have to constantly test every 2 seconds to see where your level's at every day. You can always keep an eye on that before you take some action. Or I always go by looking at your fish. If the fish is breathing heavy or stressing out very much, chances are there's something wrong in your tank. So you do the steps, check your water, see where your levels are. You know, look for if he's getting chased by other fish. Is he stressed out because of that? Does he look like he's eating fine? I mean, there's other things you could look at, but the fish will always tell you if they're happy or not by the way they're breathing and by the way they're acting. So these fish are very happy. As you can see, they're moving in and out of the rock, they're swimming around, they're very happy. I would recommend not to feed frozen food, because the frozen food could spike your tank. But I have Spectrum pellets here. I have some flakes. Some have the algae. The other one's just more of a meaty type of flake. Refractometer to check your salinity. I have this tank at 1.5, but it'll range from 1.3 to 1.5. That's actually perfect salinity to go through your cycle of eradicating any pesticides or parasites off the fish. And he's having a good time over there. But generally 28 to 35 days, that's what they say. The life cycle of ick, and same for velvet. Velvet has the same cycle. I go 6 weeks. 6 weeks is going to be a very safe number. And also you want to set up a separate quarantine tank for coral and inverts. And inverts in coral got to be on a higher level, around 2.3 to 2.6. depending on your preference of the salinity, but they have to be more in a reef water type of environment to survive. And the thing is that when the ichthys comes off the fish, where will it go? It'll go to the sand, the live rock, and coral skeletons and snail shells. So if you really want to keep parasites out of your display tank, you got to quarantine for 6 weeks your coral, which is if you want to set a separate tank for that, you could do that. Or if you're done with quarantine your fish, you could raise the salinity in your quarantine tank and put put a light over here, which I have actually a little T5 light that I can put on top, but these fish will use the natural daylight. And you could keep the light on the coral or whatever invert or anything like that, and then wait 6 weeks and then introduce that into your tank. So depends how much your budget is and what your preference is. But these fish right here, I'm actually gonna put all my fish in my tank. I already have some coral right now, so believe it or not, you could add coral to your main display tank while you quarantine the fish. That way you'll kill two birds with one stone. So in 6 weeks, the coral that you choose now, the fish should be ready to put in the tank. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm putting a few pieces of coral. You'll see eventually in my next video when I put the fish in the main display tank. It'll be a while before I do that, but that way you'll see the corals I have added. And they'll be pest free because there is nothing in there to attach to a fish. So you could have inverts in your main display tank while you have these fish in the quarantine, because the inverts don't, like I said, like the shrimps and stuff like that won't carry the ick or velvet. So this is what I have going, and I'm going to keep a close eye, do weekly water changes, or you could do every 3 days, about 20 to 25%. My plan is to do like a 5-gallon water change once a week to keep this, the fish happy, and, keep this ammonia level down. That's the main thing with these tanks. You got to make sure your ammonia level doesn't get too crazy. And again, stay away from the frozen food if possible, only because the ammonia level could spike really good, even though if you have a big ass protein skimmer like I got in here. So post your comments or questions about quarantine tanks. There's a lot of knowledge that you can find online, but I'll be happy to help you if you have any questions about your particular tank. And until the next video, happy reefing, and I'll see you guys soon.